The broadcast was supposed to be another lazy half-hour of Dirk Dalton in a bathrobe, reading anonymous messages from aliens too horny, too high, or too confused to talk to a licensed counselor. His show, Open Doc Confessions, aired in the dead hours of the Galactic network, low viewership, zero censorship, and occasional fan mail from beings that communicated exclusively in pheromone clouds. Dirk had coffee in one hand, a half-dead mic in the other, and was mid-rant about the ethics of dating telepaths when his outer airlock hissed. He ignored it. Nobody showed up in person. Especially not on his trash ship, orbiting a mining rock with no atmosphere, no fuel subsidies, and no reason for foot traffic. Then it hissed again. A sharp, hurried double clunk. Then the inner door burst open, and two tall, shimmering, absolutely nude women sprinted inside, breathing hard, eyes wild, and dripping some kind of glittery sludge onto the metal floor. Dirk blinked. Ladies, unless you're here for an oil change or a nervous breakdown, you've got the wrong show. One of them, silver-eyed and barely covering herself with her hands, stepped forward. We seek sanctuary, the other added. We reject the fabric tyranny of our homeworld. We are streakers. Resistors. Free and fully exposed. Dirk took a sip of his coffee. You broke into my ship naked to protest pants? We renounce clothes. And modesty laws. And governmental bondage, said the second, now crouching behind his couch. You are a free male. You understand liberation. We saw your broadcasts. We chose you. He looked directly at the camera, sighed, and muttered. Of course you did. The stream chat exploded. Viewers from across systems flooded in, humans, reptilians, gelatinous diplomats, commenting with emojis, translations, and donation pings. The ratings ticker spiked so hard it reset twice. Dirk looked back at the women. Fine. You want warmth and a camera? I'll take you both. Then he pointed lazily toward the couch. The moment the words left his mouth, everything changed. A pulse of blue light shimmered across the ship. Both women froze, pupils dilating. Somewhere in orbit, a registry beacon activated. On the main screen, a phrase appeared in 7 alien dialects, mate acceptance phrase confirmed. Marital contract initiated. ****. Dirk stared. Wait, what? The girls screamed, in joy. One leapt into his arms, knocking over the mic. The other clung to his leg and began chanting a marriage blessing that sounded suspiciously like dirty limericks. Chat donations doubled. A reptilian ambassador posted. Human has claimed a double bond live! This is not a drill! Whoa, time out! Dirk shouted. That wasn't a proposal, it was sarcasm. I was just being polite. Politeness is the sacred key to our bonding ritual, the silver-eyed one said, now sniffing his neck. I've had dreams that started like this, Dirk muttered, but they didn't end in Galactic Marriage Court. Emergency messages began pouring in from the Broadcast Oversight Council. One simply read, What did you do? The woman on his leg licked his foot. We are yours, mate unit. Will you give us Earth names or mark us directly? Mark you? Lady, I haven't even learned your names. The stream audience hit triple digits of thousands. Fan edits started circulating mid-episode. One showed Dirk holding both aliens like bridal bouquets under the words asterisk. One man, two problems. Asterisk. He yanked his leg free and backed into his couch. Look, I run a sleazy confession show. I drink bad coffee. My ship leaks in 17 places. I haven't cleaned the shower since the last tentacle guest. This is not a viable marriage habitat. The taller one beamed. Then we shall clean. And repair. And serve. You accepted us. You said the sacred words. I'll take you both as sacred? Yes, she replied. It is the old phrase of provision and shelter. It means you accept mutual vulnerability and public coupling. I was offering a couch, not a commitment. The screen blinked again. Marriage contract locked via Lexicon 82B. Annulment requires planetary council vote. Dirk rubbed his temples. You two are fugitives? They nodded proudly. Naked fugitives who think I'm a suitable husband because I gave you air and coffee. Also, said the smaller one, now curled up beside him, you are warm. Your body radiates comfort pheromones. We approve. Why is that suddenly a turn on across species? He groaned. The taller one found his mug and took a sip. This beverage is bitter and sexual. That's just cheap roast, Dirk said. But thanks, I guess. Backstage messages from his producers begged him to lean in. Ratings had never been higher. Sponsors were offering Galactic credits if he kept the honeymoon arc going for at least 12 episodes. Alien tabloids were bidding for interviews with the human who married two nude revolutionaries. One girl asked, Is now when we perform Earth foreplay? We brought a bonding stick. She held up a spatula. Dirk took the spatula, sighed, and turned back to the camera. You heard it here first, folks. Either I've lost my mind, or I'm now legally, emotionally, and possibly erotically responsible for two naked alien women who mistake sarcasm for commitment. He held up the mug. Cheers to romance. And confusion. The feed erupted with heart reactions, tips, and mating gifts. Dirk slumped into the couch as both brides snuggled up on either side, purring softly. This is gonna be a long damn week. The next morning started with a bang, literally. One of them, the smaller one, tried to cook breakfast by punching the food dispenser until it leaked something gelatinous onto the floor. We provide for our mate, she declared proudly while Dirk, half asleep and holding his mug like a security blanket, stared at the dripping sludge and muttered, I miss cereal. The ship was no longer his. Technically, it was still registered in his name, but functionally it had become the set for Alien Housewife Life, a show now being broadcast on 17 fringe channels and 2 major networks. The contract had been signed in a flurry of digital ink and bribery. Viewers demanded honeymoon progression, intercultural intimacy, and a live look at his bonded lifestyle. Dirk had no idea how many people were watching him brush his teeth while 2 alien women braided their hair with his spare socks. They'd turned the hallway into a nesting trail, with blankets, synthetic foliage, and suspiciously gooey scent markers. His spare underwear drawer had been emptied and replaced with folded towels labeled mate pelts. The couch now had 3 designated sitting zones, hers, and his lap. They were obsessed with cuddling. Or rather, their version of it, which involved intense eye contact, rhythmic humming, and occasional attempts to sit on his shoulders like he was a decorative throne. We read about human closeness, Xena said as she draped herself across his back. This is how affection is displayed, yes? No, that's how chiropractors get paid, he groaned. Lella, the silver-eyed one, was worse. She found a stash of old human romance vids in the ship's archive and immediately began reenacting every soap opera trope with alarming intensity. My heart screams when you are distant, she moaned, clinging to the shower curtain while Dirk tried to rinse off. Your silence is a wound upon my mating core. I'm trying to pee, he replied. During the second live stream, Dirk attempted to explain personal boundaries. Xena responded by nodding solemnly, then licking his shoulder as a submission gesture. Lella, not to be outdone, dragged a pillow into the hallway and announced she would fast from sleeping alone until her mating claim was acknowledged. Dirk sat between them with a headset, whispering into the producer mic. Please tell me this doesn't count as cultural abuse. Viewership soared. Fans shipped him with both. Edits circulated with captions like asterisk. He opened his door, now he opens their hearts. Asterisk one alien species even sent a congratulatory message. Your bonding ritual was short, but deeply erotic. We hope for sequels. Their understanding of Earth phrases got worse by the hour. Lella walked in wearing one of Dirk's jackets backwards, declaring herself officially wrapped in his commitment. Xena saw this and retaliated by putting on his tool belt, and nothing else, stating, If she wears your passion, I wear your purpose. One morning, they cornered him with questions. We must understand this word, spooning, Xena said. It involves humans sleeping in stacked positions? Is this your mating start position? Dirk choked on his protein bar. Stacked, what? No. It's just, you lay next to someone and, look, it's not a prelude to anything, okay? But why would one press rear against groin if not for fusion? Lella asked, tilting her head like a confused puppy. He backed into the wall. Because it's warm. Comforting. Not everything ends in, bonding. They looked skeptical. They tried spooning that night. With him in the middle. One humming into his neck, the other stroking his hair while asking if human intimacy climaxed from ear stimulation. Dirk didn't sleep. He just stared at the ceiling, wondering what decisions led to becoming the galaxy's favorite accidental husband. Midweek, producers sent new episode titles like Mating Games, Human Edition, and Two Brides, One Earthling. Dirk threatened to walk. They offered triple pay and suggested a spicy picnic scene. Lella agreed instantly and started learning the art of feeding Dirk by hand, using spicy noodles and no utensils. We taste better this way, she whispered, inches from his face. He wasn't sure if she meant the food or herself. To maintain his sanity, he made rules. No licking without consent. No sleeping in the air ducts. No storing mating declarations in his sock drawer. They broke all three within 48 hours. Still, something shifted. They started asking questions about him. His home. His family. His favorite smell. They listened when he ranted about the broken air filter. Xena surprised him by fixing it, then gave him the broken part wrapped in silk. I return your burden, mate. It no longer rules your air. It was sweet. Terrifying, but sweet. He still didn't know what to make of the intimacy. Every day blurred the line between performance and something disturbingly real. The way Xena curled into his side during breaks. The way Lella watched his face like she was mapping his emotions. The way they touched, curious, reverent, and entirely too sincere. Late one night, off camera, Dirk found them asleep on the floor, curled around each other, whispering in their native tongue. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone, gentle, protective, vulnerable. He stared at them. Two alien women who crashed into his life, misread a joke as a vow, and now treated him like the sun around which they orbited. He sat down nearby, exhaled slowly, and whispered, "What the hell am I doing?" A voice chimed in from the comm unit. "You're married, Dirk," said his producer. "And the ratings say, they love watching you fall for them." He didn't answer. Because deep down, he already had. By the third week, he couldn't remember what silence felt like. Every morning started with Xena whispering, mating affirmation, quotes into his ear while Lella watched human cooking shows and tried to recreate the meals shirtless and upside down. They called it bonding. He called it chaos. There wasn't a single surface in the ship that hadn't been repurposed into something intimate. The kitchen was now the affection pit. The hallway had been relabeled foreplay corridor. And his bed was no longer his, it was the shared warmth altar. Apparently sacred now that all three of them had sweat on it. They still didn't fully grasp human romance, but they were trying. Xena had found Earth lingerie, wore it backward, and asked if it restricted the right areas for stimulation. Lella brought him coffee laced with aphrodisiacs from her homeworld and proudly called it consent juice. He spat it across the floor. She giggled and said, "Ah, you like it rough." Things had escalated quickly. Every conversation turned into a verbal landmine of innuendo. Dirk couldn't say the word, tight fit, without someone moaning. At one point, he asked for a wrench with a good grip. And Xena nearly fainted from what she claimed was emotional arousal. Lella started calling herself his domestic service partner, and kept appearing behind him holding towels or oils like she was preparing for an off-brand spa session. Nothing was safe. Not language, not food, not even the vents. He found scented candles burning in the ducts with labels like mate fuel and moist embrace. He tried to bring structure back. Let's go slow. Talk. Watch a movie. Something normal. So they played a romantic human film. Big mistake. After 5 minutes of watching two characters hold hands on a beach, Xena turned to him, genuinely confused, and asked, "When do they pounce?" Lella added, "Why is there sand and no penetration?" He left the room. They followed. The producers loved every second. The show was now translated into 11 languages. Merch was flying off shelves. Dirk's face, alongside two alien hearts wrapped around a bathrobe, was the hottest meme in 5 sectors. 2 brides, 1 husband, no escape, was trending. His inbox overflowed with fan letters, proposals, threats, and one disturbingly detailed interspecies fanfiction that involved him, a sentient lamp, and 6 gallons of honey. But behind the madness, something shifted. One evening, Xena made him dinner. Real food. Burnt, oversalted, and weirdly shaped, but it was for him. She sat nervously, hands twitching, eyes darting, waiting to see if he'd eat it. He did. Badly. She almost cried. "I have done research," she said quietly. "I will improve. You are worth trying for." Lella, usually the more dramatic of the two, toned down her wild displays. She started asking about his family, his childhood, his first heartbreak. She told him stories about her training, about the pressure of representing her people in rebellion, about how terrified she was when they ran, naked and unarmed, across a hostile moon just to get to his ship. They weren't just playing along anymore. They were bonding. For real. And it was messing with him. Because he wasn't sure what part was the act. Were they clinging to him because the cameras were rolling? Because he was the symbol of their escape? Or because, despite the cultural misfires and sexual misunderstandings, they actually liked him? That question haunted him more than the cameras ever did. Especially when Xena curled up next to him after lights out and whispered, "You breathe differently when you dream of home. I hope one day, it's us." Especially when Lella kissed his forehead and said, "We still don't understand everything. But we know this, when you speak, we feel safe." Dirk tried to resist. He reminded himself it was a show. A stunt. A misunderstanding snowballing downhill at light speed. But then he started noticing things. The way they never touched him without asking now. The way they fought less with each other and more for his approval. The way they'd memorized his coffee order, his repair routines, his favorite curse words. He was falling. Or worse, he already had. And the universe wasn't going to let him forget it. A diplomatic envoy arrived with legal papers and a smug grin. "You may nullify the bond," the alien official said. "Leave them. Return to Earth. Your ratings will spike even higher. Tragic endings are monetizable." Dirk stared at the paper. His name. Their names. The out clause. One signature, and it would all be over. No more scent markers. No more misused undergarments. No more affection rituals in the middle of system diagnostics. And yet, the thought of waking up alone again in a silent ship made his chest feel hollow. Xena and Lella watched from a distance. They didn't protest. Didn't plead. They just waited. Like whatever happened next wasn't about contracts or ratings. Just choice. He didn't sign. Instead, he walked over to them, handed back the paper, and said, "If I'm going to keep being confused, at least I'd rather be confused with you too." Xena blinked fast. Lella whispered, "So, this means we move on to advanced mating stages?" He sighed. "This means I stop pretending I'm not into this weird, insane, surprisingly wholesome insanity." Xena lit up like a solar flare. Lella tried to tackle him and knocked over the couch. The cameras caught all of it. The network celebrated by sending them matching bathrobes that said mated, not just dating. Dirk slipped his on, sat between them, and muttered, "I've seen worse love stories." Xena licked his cheek. Lella kissed his neck. The producers declared it the highest-rated moment in Galactic reality programming history. Dirk didn't care. For the first time since this mess began, he didn't feel like a hostage, a stunt, or a cosmic punchline. He felt home. The day started with a contract. Not a romantic one, an actual, interplanetary legal document dropped into Dirk's inbox with glowing red letters and 12 attached clauses. The show had hit peak saturation. The network execs were offering him a massive solo deal: drop the brides, get a high-budget rebrand, and star in a human-centered show back on Earth. No more mating misunderstandings, no more shared showers, no more spice-scented pillow fights that left the air filters clogged. The message was simple: ditch the aliens, collect the fame. He stared at the screen. The number was obscene. Enough to buy a moon. But the idea of going back to solo rants and drunk confessions felt hollow. The ship wasn't just louder now, it was alive. There were mismatched robes hanging on the reactor vents. There was always a plate of something edible but questionable waiting for him. Someone was always humming. Someone was always around to ask why humans needed so many socks. They didn't know about the offer. Xena had spent the morning repainting the cockpit windows with symbols from her homeworld, apparently a fertility blessing. Lela was in the galley trying to make pancakes with alien flour that smelled like passionfruit and regret. Both had stopped asking him to claim them. They didn't need to anymore. It was in the way Xena leaned into his side at night, whispering stories from her world in the dark. It was in the way Lela had stopped calling him Mate Unit and just started calling him Dirk. And maybe that was the problem. It wasn't a game anymore. Not for them. And not for him. So he sat them down. Both of them. Calmly. No cameras, no producers. Just them. I got an offer, he said. Big one. If I take it, the show ends. You get transferred somewhere safe. I get rich. Alone. Neither of them reacted the way he expected. Xena looked down. You deserve comfort. Lela gave a faint smile. But not loneliness. They didn't fight. They didn't beg. They just nodded and waited. Waited for him to choose. He stared at them. Naked. Vulnerable in the only way that mattered. Not because they were physically exposed, they always were, but because they'd stopped pretending. They weren't acting anymore. And neither was he. I said I'll take you both as a joke, he said slowly. But I meant it before I knew I meant it. And now I do. They didn't cheer. Didn't pounce. Xena reached out and took his hand. Lela pressed her forehead to his. And for the first time, there were no innuendos. No suggestive phrasing. Just warmth. He sent the contract back and signed. The producers lost their minds. Ratings skyrocketed. Fans spammed the stream with "He stayed!" gifs and mating proposal jokes. A betting pool in 3 systems declared the outcome a cultural milestone. Dirk didn't care. He shut off the cameras for the first time in weeks and told the network they could wait. It was their honeymoon now. They didn't waste time. Xena insisted on a ritual cleansing, which involved sponge baths, flower petals, and a strange chant that translated to "We wash the fear off first." Lela brought scented oil she claimed was used to mark one's chosen. Dirk told her he didn't want to be marked. She marked him anyway. With a heart. On his butt. Using a brush and serious eye contact. They didn't rush the rest. It was awkward and slow, but it was theirs. They asked before touching. They laughed when it went wrong. They tried again. And when it finally worked, it wasn't just physical, it was stupid, funny, clumsy, human. They called it soul alignment. He called it the best mistake of his life. Afterwards, they sat tangled in blankets on the couch, the same one they'd invaded weeks ago, and talked. About everything. About how they had been raised to serve, to survive, to seduce. How Dirk had accidentally shown them what it meant to be chosen instead of claimed. How they didn't want to go back to a life of assignments and orders. How they wanted to stay. Not because they had no home. But because now they did. He didn't give them Earth names. He asked them theirs. Real ones. Not protest aliases. They told him. He couldn't pronounce them at first. He tried anyway. They cried. Then kissed him until the translation implant got confused and started playing elevator music. Weeks passed. The show rebranded itself as a Cultural mating exchange documentary. The fans didn't care. They were obsessed. Every meal, every argument, every quiet night watching old Earth movies while curled up in a 3-person blanket pile, they ate it up. Dirk became the accidental face of interspecies romance. Marriage proposals flooded in from beings with gills, wings, and tentacles. He politely declined every one. He only wanted 2. The only 2 who'd ever made his tiny ship feel like home. He looked back at that first night often. 2 naked fugitives on his airlock, dripping dew and desperation. All it took was 6 words. "I'll take you both." It wasn't meant to be serious. Wasn't meant to change anything. But it did. Because sometimes the best parts of life don't come from plans. They crash in half naked, misunderstand your sarcasm, and redecorate your cargo bay with flower-shaped pillows. And if you're lucky, really lucky, they stay. Dirk looked over at them, now bickering over who got to wear his shirt for the evening. Lella had it halfway on. Xena was already halfway back out of hers. They saw him watching, paused, and asked in unison, "Want to join?" He grinned. "Always." And just like that, no home, no clothes, and nowhere to go turned into the best damn life in the galaxy.